Testing. All right. Yep. Testing. There we go. 30 p.m. I guess you need to look in this direction for the mic. Good afternoon, everyone. Excited to see a full room here. My name's Alyssa Kroeger. I'm the Housing Program Manager with the City of Pacific Grove. I'm also on the Leadership Council with the Coalition, and I'm super honored and excited to be here with this esteemed panel discussing reflections from residents with lived experience. With that, we do have another mic at the other end of the table if Wes would like to grab that. And we'll go ahead and start off the panel by passing the mic down, and everyone can introduce themselves and their affiliations while we get ready to dive into some questions.
Okay, I guess I'll keep it short. Wes White, Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union, also part of the National Union of the Homeless, which is under the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. I'm also part of the LEAD committee, which is a Lived-Experience Advisory Directive for the continuum of care for Monterey and San Benito counties.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sol Rivera. I oversee the Youth Action Board and the Youth for Action.
Testing. My name is Timothy Heavin, and I do homeless outreach with Access Support Network. I serve on the COC Leadership Council, and I am the chair of the Lived Experience Advisory Directive.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lyvesha Franklin. I'm also known as Queen Tay. I am the co-chair of the LEAD Council alongside Tim, and I'm also the CEO and founder of my own organization called Queen's Council. I'm building a Black birth network here in Monterey County.
Wonderful. Let's give it up for our esteemed panelists. Thank you. So for those who just walked in, welcome. This is our lived experience panel. We're deeply honored to present an extraordinary panel of impassioned and experienced individuals who have not only traversed the path beside those who have grappled with homelessness, but who have themselves weathered its tumultuous storms. Testing. Myself included. Today, we embark on an enlightened journey to unveil the obstacles and opportunities to address homelessness within our current systems through the lens of those who possess intimate knowledge of the lived experience when lacking a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. So, I'd like to just start by getting a sense of who all here is in the room. Just real quickly, with a show of hands, can I see who here has personally known someone who's experienced homelessness? All right. Who here has experienced homelessness themselves? Welcome. Who here is in the homelessness sector? All right. And how about housing? My housers, woo woo. Health? All right. And government? Wonderful. Who here serves in a community capacity? All right, and who here participated in their local point in time count? Awesome, and who here is planning to participate in the next point in time count? Let's get all those hands raised, come on. All right, so we'll start the panel off with our first question today, and each panelist will have around 2 or 3 minutes each to respond. So could you share your personal experiences and insights regarding the current barriers and challenges within the system that impact individuals with lived experience of homelessness? What have you encountered that you believe needs immediate attention and improvement? And whoever would like to start, or we can go ahead and start over where the mic is with Wes.
Okay, so I've experienced homelessness. I used to live in my car for about 6 months, and luckily I found people that would take care of me. But that wasn't what I found for a lot of people. More than anything, people need stability and consistency. 4 walls and a roof and a door that locks, that would actually loosen a lot of post-traumatic stress for a lot of people. Just giving people permission to be somewhere, anywhere. At least like some kind of ID card actually is what I'm throwing out there is immunity from sweeps. Some way that we can identify people as harmless, not homeless. And almost everybody is already signed up in CARS, HMIS, and every jurisdiction should respect that. If we're going to work as a partnership that, following the Coalition of Homeless Service Providers and Leadership Council, those entities are supposed to be the responsible ones, and they're all jurisdictions as well. And for me, that's we're all here to save lives. You know, our homeless union, the police, fire. Why are we butting heads? Why is there so much attacking happening? You know, I wish I could think of it differently, but I love the support that's given, and I feel really good about the way things are going now, and fruition of making it to where we're valuing people, treating people like people. You know, hopefully is the direction we're going right now, with being on the continuum of care, getting a vote as far as that. You know, we have gone a long way, and just immunity from sweeps I think would be a fruition. You know, I mean, it's permanently temporary for a while. When shelter in place happened, that was actually our renaissance time. You know, it was amazing because people were allowed to stay where they were at. We got porta potties and dumpsters. We should have running water and electricity is really where it should be. So I loved hearing Genevieve say like showers and laundry. But really it's just being able to be consistently where you're at and just being passed over. How can we pass people over from being accosted by law enforcement? I think is one of the biggest issues right now. They threw everybody off of the property in public property, and now everybody's along the train tracks, which eliminated the need for, you know, from the city's perspective, porta potties and dumpsters. So, we should raise that level of minimal health and safety standard. Okay, health and safety days is what they call it. They're kicking everybody out of Car Lake right now. They got a grant for $8 million, but they're getting rid of everybody. So, are we really here to help, or are we just collecting money? And we're still going to see those people tomorrow. So how do we, you know, everybody is in their own neighborhood. And that's what trips me out is like, you know, they have to be close to their family, to their work, to their doctor appointments. And they need to be in their own neighborhood. And that's, we need to not just go like, well, we just need a place. No, it's all places. It's just recognize that people are too poor to afford rent. And if we could do that and identify them as harmless, I could see a lot of things improving.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wes. So my name is Sol Rivera. I have been home. I think if you would be to ask me if I was homeless before, I would answer with the question, which time? I have been homeless multiple times in my life, whether it be housing instability, living in cars, going through couches. I have even made my way, I have gone full circle and have become a social worker over at Dorothy's Place. And I think that one of the really big needs that I currently see in the community is the lack of not thinking or care, but lack of resources for our undocumented folks. As a social worker, as someone who has been there, I have multiple times have had to scramble and be like, okay, where can I go? Where can I send you? Oh, I have to send you to a religious organization. Oh, you're not religious and you don't want to go to a religious organization. That is perfectly fine. Let's try to find you something else. Oh, you need a social security for this. You need this. You need that. So I think that for me personally, where I see the need is with our undocumented folks, but also our folks who are homeless as well. So just kind of bringing that up to light for folks so that folks are very well aware of just kind of the way in which we are bringing this conversation forward.
Thank you, Sol. So I also have experienced homelessness on many different times in my life. The most recent time I was experiencing homelessness was during COVID. And so during COVID, I experienced a breakup with my then girlfriend, which left me out on the streets. I ended up living in my RV. The levels of stress I was experiencing, just looking for a safe spot I could be throughout the day, it was a real struggle. And not knowing exactly, you know, where I was going to be able to sleep at night, it could just be so stressful. That's just part of the struggle. It seems like the stresses just kept piling up so quickly, and I found myself turning to drugs just to be able to cope with these stresses as an easy way out. I felt like, you know, there just wasn't anyone I could turn to for help. You know, when you hit rock bottom, it's nearly impossible to dig yourself out. You know, I had to force myself to have the willpower to stay proactive and get myself out. I remember taking a CARS assessment and getting into the system for housing. Once I was in the system, I constantly worried how long it was going to take to actually get into housing, and to make sure I was just able to even keep my cell phone number active long enough, so that they know where to get a hold of me at. I feel like so much stress and problems could have been avoided had there just been a safe place I could park while waiting for my number to be called. Time was never on my side. I am really pushing for cities within our counties to have these sort of sanctioned encampment areas where people that are in the system and simply waiting for housing can feel safe and connected without constantly worrying about getting swept, and where work with service providers can actually be effective. Because oftentimes a lot of people that are waiting for housing, they call them sweeps, where they're living in encampments and they get pushed around as service providers. Then they don't have phones. We don't know how to find them. So then their number gets called, and it leads to chronic homelessness, because then they just have to start the process all over again. So I'm really, there are some effective strategies and stuff that we can replicate out there that other areas are doing that we could also bring here.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, my name is Lyvesha Franklin, and my story is after my mom passed away, I decided to relocate with my 4 children here to California, and I was renting a room from a beautiful mom-like friend. And so when I signed my kids up for school, we qualified for the McKinney Veto Act because I did not have a lease or a bill in my name. And my youngest son, he was diagnosed at a young age with oppositional defiancy disorder due to a frontal lobe abnormality. So I was advocating at the school for my son to receive services like an IEP because I know the benefit of services. And I also know the detriment of not receiving services, which is notably referred to as the school to prison pipeline. This is a narrative that I know all too well. I'm the oldest of 5 younger brothers, and all of my brothers went straight down that school to prison pipeline because of a lack of mental service support. So I did not want this to be the case for my son, so I advocated heavily, which was met with a lot of resistance. And I have to be honest that anti-Black racism absolutely played a major role in the lack of support that I was receiving. There was only 2 Black families in the school, so my family became absolutely expendable. And one day I came to school to pick my kids up from school, and DHR had been called, and my children were removed from my custody without an investigation for 18 months. In that time, I felt like I was pulled into a tornado, and my entire world exploded, and I was lost in a dark, empty space of total helplessness, not knowing what to do or how to protect myself or my children, while already dealing with the loss of my mother. I relied totally on my faith in God, and I learned about the gathering place for women from my therapist. And I had always been familiar with Salvation Army. So I reached out to the Salvation Army, and even though I was on a waiting list, I still stayed very active with that connection. During that time, it was time for my children to be reunited with me, and I was promised a housing voucher for the reunification process, which did not come through, which also anti-Black racism, discrimination, and favoritism contributed to the lack of support that I received, as if they wanted to keep my family destroyed. I felt totally unsupported. However, like I said, it was my faith and my consistency and my hard work and my connections and my relationship building that brought me through that process. And I was able to completely go through the alternative housing program through Salvation Army without support, other than the caseworker, which she's here today. I don't know if she's in this room, but I saw her today, and I love her, and I think the world is a better place because people like her exist, and like all of you here who do the work. However, I was able to be reunified with my children and secure permanent housing without a housing voucher. And I've since, thank you, I've since been a very active leader in the community. At the start of the pandemic, I was one of the very first CHWs to help pilot the Monterey County VITA project, and I stuck with that for 2 years, and now, along with my fiscal sponsor, the Birth Network, which I sit on the board of directors, now they are fiscally sponsoring my own organization to build a birth network to help support Black pregnant mothers during pregnancy, childbirth, and the first 5 years of postpartum. And also, there's some great people in this room who are also working with me to help support and make that a reality here in this community. And I'm just saying, I was not born and raised here. I was new here, so there was a total kind of like disconnect from resources here. But I have encountered some very beautiful people, and I'm building that network so that I can be a support in creating that bridge for other vulnerable, unsupported members of our community.
Thank you. Let's give it up for our panelists sharing their stories. And let's give it up for the case managers out there one more time, doing the good work like everyone here in this room. Thanks for showing up. All right, so question 2. Are there any specific initiatives or strategies that you've been involved in or have witnessed that have successfully addressed some of the challenges within this system? Can you provide examples of initiatives that have made a positive impact? Go ahead and take it away, Wes.
Oh, very cool. Some initiatives. I would say that Sherwood Park, we had an encampment there for over a year. That was great. Roberts Lake during the pandemic. Colonel Durham during the pandemic. The safe parking out in Marina. Lapis Road was actually somewhat workable back in 2017. And those folks actually took a long time to actually be placed, 5-7 years, and that when I'm following them through all of those encampments, the same people, we spend so much money hurting them and not enough trying to halt that hurt to help the healing. $4 million for Smith and Enright, so maybe I'm saying the negative stuff, but all that money could be gone towards sanctioned encampments, which is supposed to be an agenda item maybe next month or something for the city of Salinas, and that's actually already been implemented during shelter in place where we were providing services. It was so much cheaper and respectful, and people had a much better quality of life. Those are some of the encampments the flagpole. I had a 6-month protest at City Hall every night from 6 to 6 when there was no camping allowed, and everyone was, functionally dysfunctional, as almost any family is. But they were peaceful, and that's the thing. We got to realize and recognize that people are just too poor to afford rent. That's the only real difference. Because everyone's still trying to be safe, everyone's still trying to be healthy, we're dysfunctional, we're all dysfunctional, this culture kind of puts it upon us. It's really easy, just sanction encampments, allowing people to be where they're at, recognizing that they're just too poor to afford rent.
Yeah, so a lot about what we've heard from Wes is about just COVID in general, and I'll be talking a little bit about COVID as well. During COVID, I worked together with Building Healthy Communities. I was a supporting role when they were giving undocumented families the $500, because what we saw is that a lot of the help that they were receiving at the time, they were going to taxpayers, or they were going with people with social security numbers, and as we know, undocumented folks don't have that. So that's one of the initiatives that I also assisted with. One thing that I would like to talk about right now is the YAB. So the Youth Action Board is actually a board of members full of individuals from the ages of 16 to 28 who have lived experience as well. So we are trying to really have a seat at the table, as you will, in order for our youth to really be represented and well respected in this space as well. So just think about how you're working collaboratively with youth, whether this, if that youth are being given the same seat at the table that everyone else is. I think that would be something that would be really great to see in future initiatives.
So I began serving on the COC Leadership Council 3 years ago as a lived experience member. And I felt like, my voice alone wasn't going to be as effective as multiple voices. So a year ago, with the help of Roxanne, Genevieve, Lyvesha, and Bella, I was able to develop what I named the LEAD, the Lived Experience Advisory Directive. Having the voices of the people experiencing homelessness at the forefront and involved when it comes to these policies and decisions, the funding that is received, and to make sure it is being used effectively is just so important. There needs to be equity and accountability. Besides the LEAD, I feel like other great initiatives that have taken place are some of the hotel conversions that have been going on in Marina, Salinas, King City, as well as the new tiny home project taking place in Pajaro. I think that permanent supportive housing is crucial, as well as involving the voices of us. I did stay at a sanctioned encampment in Colonel Durham during COVID. That was really effective. I mean, it was really well run. There was rules, the number one rule was no violence, and there wasn't any violence. Was there any violence, you were kicked out. And it was actually the crime rate, if you go to crime maps, I did a crime maps, there was little to no crime in that encampment whatsoever. It was well maintained. They brought us porta potties out there. There was a little shower they even put up, and there was water where you could connect the hoses, and they even helped out with the big trash thing. So it was just simple things like that went a long way. And they actually used funding that was to fund that whole thing was used from interest earned on one of their accounts, the coalition. And at the end of COVID, they just decided, COVID's over, you guys have to go. And that was kind of, I actually made a news report on it, and because it just didn't seem really fair to me. You guys have to go, but where are you guys going to go? If you're going to kick someone out of a place that they're staying, they should have some reasonable means of relocating them,
All right, thanks, Tim. In a meeting I attended not too long ago, the subject of mental health came up, and the question was asked, has anyone ever experienced depression and or anxiety at any point in their lives? And everyone in the meeting admitted to have had some kind of depression or anxious experiences at some point in their life, which I'm sure that's the case for every human. And it was at that time that we all realized that all of humanity is in a constant state of continuum of care as far as mental health is concerned. So, however, when you layer on top of that anti-Black racism and discrimination and the lack of cultural representation in mental health clinicians and resource service providers, then mental health circumstances have the potential to amplify almost uncontrollably. And they contribute to continuing the narrative that seems to allow anti-Black racism and discrimination to be minimized and not rectified. Being intentional about equity would mean being intentional about increasing adequate, effective representation. And cultural humility is necessary for all of humanity. However, cultural competency is educated and compensated representation. The key core base word in the word imagination is image. So let's amplify the images of successful navigations. Residents who, despite the barriers, who have not only secured housing, but are diligently dedicated to paying it forward and contributing to our community. Those are the images that we need to echo into the community and finance and back. Of course, education is necessary, but lived experience is just as equally necessary. And we still need to be educated and compensated, along with our lived experience. It can only add to the value to stop the narrative and reach the core issues and not just wiping off the surface.
Thanks, Lyvesha. I think we touched on this next question a little bit in our first two, but just to hit these points home, building on your experiences and insights, what recommendations or actions would you propose to bridge the gap between those who provide services and make policies and the individuals directly affected by homelessness? How can we work together to create more inclusive and solutions? more inclusive and effective solutions for those that didn't hear that in the back.
You know, that actually leads into what I was thinking about too. Is I missed one of the encampments was Tents by the Garden. There's a book called Make a Difference by Rita Acosta, and she's our co-president for the Homeless Union. And she brought the first porta potties down to Chinatown. Had organized 40 tents, you know, with one or two people a tent, 2 rows of 20 with a garbage can in between. This was when, you know, 2011, 2012, when there was hardly anybody around in Chinatown. But, you know, they were just respecting people, I suppose, for their own path of growth, because, I mean, they were in a vacant lot. They weren't on the sidewalk, you know, so safety. I mean, they even had a padlock and somebody be in charge of the bathroom. You know, there's so much growth that happens on a perpetual basis, and then they have to start over. Every time there's a sweep, you lose everything, which is going to make it harder to function and continue that next day. I don't think it's that hard. We're just poor. That's all it is. And how do you know, I mean, that's the whole point of discrimination, isn't it? The colonialization, manifest destiny. If you ain't got money, then you don't belong here. And that's a hard fact that we need to change. That's a policy that needs to change. It's not about a revenue stream. It's about a relationship if you're going to be in public service.
Thank you, Wes. Yeah, so when it comes to my personal experience, when I think back on it, I think that we just didn't think, my parents, just to open up to the room, are undocumented. So when it comes to homelessness in undocumented spaces, it's really hard to seek help, right? Because there's always that fear of being deported or being put somewhere else. Or it's essentially very similar to homelessness, where they pick you up, they take everything away from you, and they throw you back. So I really think that, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Swing back around to Seoul.
So, I think that we as a people need to treat each other as people with the same amount of dignity and respect. We really need to remember to have compassion and understanding that people that are experiencing homelessness come from all walks of life. Everyone has their own unique story. You never know when it could happen to you someday. If we can get together as a people, as a community, and just be willing to help the next person that is struggling, we need to do that. We need to do what we can to build each other up and not just kick people while they're down. I really feel like we are making some great headway in Monterey and San Bernardino County, and are finally actually like headed in the right direction with the work that's being done, and just the inclusion of people with lived experience in this county, and I know that a lot of policymakers, they're listening.